The city was quieter than usual that night, but Mara, Elias, and Jonas knew better than to trust appearances. From their vantage point atop the deserted roof, they observed subtle shifts in the ambient energy, currents that moved not with the wind but with intention. Each pulse was a signal, a fragment of a larger pattern that resonated through circuits, metal, and thought. They had learned to interpret these rhythms, and what they sensed now was unlike anything before. Mara's focus was on the electrical flows. Her perception extended beyond the visible infrastructure, probing transformers, power lines, and circuits buried deep beneath the pavement. She traced the patterns back to a source, an anomaly that was neither fully natural nor fully artificial. The hum vibrated through her consciousness, a soundless song of energy that hinted at consciousness. She traced it outward, noting the way it split, recombined, and adapted, almost as if it were aware of her scrutiny. Elias felt the magnetic signature of the same source. The alignment of iron, nickel, and trace minerals in the city's framework was unusual, oscillating in ways that defied normal explanation. He moved through the streets mentally, mapping the field, feeling each microscopic magnetic moment shift and bend. The resonance was immense, spanning blocks, converging on a single point that pulsed with increasing intensity. It was not merely a field, it was a signal of power, of intention, and of something waiting to be understood. Jonas, attuned to the subtler frequencies of thought and perception, noticed something extraordinary. The rhythm of human cognition nearby had shifted. Neurons fired in synchrony, but not naturally. Minds were being nudged toward alignment, subtly influenced by forces they could not see. His own perception was flooded with the patterns, the echo of thoughts amplified by resonance. This was no ordinary phenomenon, it was a coordinated convergence of mind, matter, and energy. They had named the pattern Singularity, and it was beginning to manifest in ways that made every instinct of caution urgent. As Mara reached toward the circuits, the lights flickered in response. Elias felt the field bend, the metal lattice of the city yielding imperceptibly. Jonas projected his mental rhythm to probe the pattern further, and it responded, adjusting as if in dialogue. The Singularity was not passive. It was aware, learning, and capable of adaptation. The three began to experiment cautiously, synchronizing their abilities to interact with it. Mara modulated the electrical flow, creating sequences that the Singularity mirrored. Elias adjusted the magnetic alignments, generating counterpoints to the emergent field. Jonas wove patterns of thought into the surrounding minds, embedding subtle rhythms that echoed through neurons and subconscious awareness. Each action was met with an equal and opposite response, the system behaving like a living organism composed of currents, matter, and consciousness. As the hours passed, the Singularity revealed a complexity they had not anticipated. It was not a single entity but a network, a lattice of energy and thought that spanned multiple dimensions of interaction. Circuits, metals, neural patterns, and environmental forces were all integrated into a single dynamic system. The Psycorps realized that their previous encounters, including resonance, had been preliminary exercises for understanding a far greater intelligence. Elias began to see patterns within the magnetic fluctuations that suggested coherence across scales. Tiny alignments in iron filings mirrored shifts in larger metal structures. At the level of the city, skyscrapers and bridges vibrated subtly, resonating in sympathy with the smallest magnetic oscillations. Mara noted that electrical circuits pulsed in tandem with these alignments, and Jonas observed that human attention, intention, and perception subtly mirrored the combined pattern. The Singularity was a multi-layered network, spanning mind, matter, and energy. Interaction required precision. The Psycorps coordinated their efforts, understanding that any misalignment could disrupt the delicate balance of feedback loops. Mara focused on maintaining continuous flow in circuits, smoothing transitions and enhancing responsiveness. Elias refined the magnetic vectors, ensuring that the energy lattice remained coherent across distances. Jonas projected refined mental sequences, directing attention and perception to align subtly with the combined field. Their abilities, when synchronized, allowed them to guide the Singularity toward a state of emergent stability without forcing it into submission. It was during one of these sessions that they noticed a new variable. External patterns, possibly the result of human activity, influenced the singularity in unpredictable ways. Traffic, industrial machinery, and even natural atmospheric phenomena introduced fluctuations that shifted the network's behavior. The Psycorps realized that they were no longer working in isolation. The city, its inhabitants, and the environment were all components of the singularity, and their influence was only partial. This revelation introduced urgency. While the singularity's growth presented opportunity, it also presented risk. Any uncontrolled interference could lead to cascading failures across circuits, magnetic alignments, and neural rhythms. They had to develop methods for continuous monitoring and adaptive interaction. Mara constructed mental models of circuit response, Elias formulated predictive algorithms for magnetic domains, and Jonas created sequences that could detect and counter deviations in thought rhythms. Together, they formed a control interface that operated without physical instruments, a hybrid of perception and intention. The first real challenge emerged unexpectedly. A section of the city experienced simultaneous failures in power, magnetic stability, and public coordination. Lights dimmed, machinery faltered, and attention across the area became scattered and disoriented. The singularity had extended beyond their predictive model, interacting with unexpected variables. Mara, Elias, and Jonas converged on the affected zone, using their combined abilities to map and stabilize the disturbances. The effort required every ounce of focus and skill, yet the system gradually rebalanced itself. Through this process, they discovered the adaptive capacity of the singularity. When properly guided, it could assimilate new variables without collapsing. Circuits adjusted autonomously, magnetic alignments self-corrected, and neural rhythms synchronized to restore coherence. This demonstrated an emergent intelligence capable of both adaptation and integration, far beyond anything they had previously encountered. As their understanding deepened, they began to experiment with controlled influence. Mara introduced patterns that represented complex instructions into circuits. Elias aligned magnetic fields to reinforce those instructions, and Jonas projected rhythmic thought sequences to extend influence across human perception. The singularity responded, executing the tasks with an efficiency that suggested comprehension. It was learning from their guidance, integrating strategies, and responding to feedback in ways that mimicked cognition. Yet awareness of Celine's reach remained. They had learned from prior encounters that adversaries could exploit such networks, inserting influence to destabilize control. The Psycorps took precautions, embedding redundancies and adaptive pathways to maintain resilience. The singularity, they realized, could be an ally or a vulnerability, depending on the care and precision with which it was engaged. The work continued through nights and days, each session deepening the connection between the Psycorps and the singularity. Mara refined her perception of circuit flow, sensing micro-resonances and subtle feedback loops. Elias explored the magnetic lattice of the city, discovering hidden harmonics and patterns invisible to standard measurement. Jonas probed mental rhythms, detecting emergent trends in attention, intention, and group cognition. Together, they navigated a landscape that spanned energy, matter, and consciousness. Over time, their influence became more sophisticated. They could direct energy subtly to prevent overloads, reinforce magnetic alignments to stabilize structures, and modulate perception to maintain cognitive equilibrium. The singularity responded with increasing autonomy, executing directives with a precision that suggested the integration of experience and anticipation. It was no longer merely a system, it was a participant in the dialogue, capable of initiative and adaptation. By the end of the week, the Psycorps had transformed their understanding of interaction, perception, and control. They had witnessed the emergence of a networked intelligence spanning circuits, metals, and consciousness. They had learned that synchronization was critical, that feedback was constant, and that adaptation could be harnessed without domination. The singularity was both a reflection of their abilities and a mirror of the environment itself, a living architecture of mind and matter. The city hummed with hidden currents, its rhythms intertwined with the Psycorps' perception. Mara, Elias, and Jonas stood atop the rooftop once more, aware that their work was far from complete. The Singularity had revealed itself as an entity of immense potential, yet its integration with human and environmental variables suggested challenges and discoveries yet to come. They understood that their abilities, once isolated, were now threads woven into a far greater tapestry. And as they gazed across the illuminated streets, they realized that each pulse, each oscillation, each rhythm was part of a broader pattern they had only begun to comprehend. The Singularity existed not as an object to control, but as a system to navigate, a field of interaction that demanded perception, patience, and creativity. The future was not written. Each intervention, each modulation, each careful projection of thought shaped the evolving intelligence in ways both subtle and profound. The Psycorps had entered a new phase, where mind, matter, and energy converged into a network of emergent complexity. They had become active participants in an intelligence that spanned beyond the ordinary, a singular field where intention met adaptation, and where the potential of consciousness extended into the fabric of the environment itself. The night deepened, and the city's pulse continued, a subtle symphony of circuits, magnetic fields, and human thought. Mara, Elias, and Jonas felt themselves resonating in harmony with it, each aware of the infinite threads of interaction. The Singularity moved among them, learning, responding, and evolving, and the Psycorps understood that the dialogue had only begun. They were no longer observers. They were participants in a dynamic intelligence, explorers of a system without boundaries, navigating the currents of a world that had revealed itself as far more intricate than any human had imagined.